Namaste, and welcome to everyone to our continuous studies of Life Divine with Ranganath. We are starting a new book today, book 2, right?
Give them the page and the chapter.
The page number 309 and chapter, the knowledge and the ignorance, the spiritual evolution, right?
No, the chapter is Indeterminates, Cosmic Determinations and the Indeterminable. The book, Srimda has divided the book into part 1 and part 2, okay, rather book 1 and book 2, and in book 2 there are 2 parts, okay, the knowledge and the ignorance, the spiritual evolution, and the first part is the infinite consciousness and the ignorance, and the second part is the evolution. He talks about the evolution. So today we are going to do the chapter Indeterminates, Cosmic Determinations and the Indeterminable. We'll read the quotations and then maybe we'll read the first paragraph and then we'll discuss the thing. We have to be clear about what Srimda means by the indeterminates, the cosmic determinations and the indeterminable. 3 terms here used. Indeterminates, determinations and the indeterminable. So, we will discuss that. Maybe we could do that before we start reading the chapter.
That would be good.
When Sri Aurobindo speaks of the indeterminate, he is speaking of something which does not have features. The more features something has, more characteristics, weight, size, color, shape, form, it is more determinate. The less it has, it is more and more indeterminate. The idea is clear? That which has got features has got determinations. That which has got no features is an indeterminate. So, then the cosmic is making determinations. The forms in the physical world are the determinations of the form. So, from where do we start and where do we end is the question. So, do we start the divine? Can we say that we can describe the divine in any way? You can't describe the divine in any way because the moment you describe him, you are limiting him. So, he is the indeterminable. He can be experienced, but he is the indeterminable. Then, the formless, the infinite, the eternal, which is the divine, starts manifesting itself, and when it manifests itself, it starts making forms, and forms are determinates. As it keeps coming down, it becomes more and more formed and more clear forms. In the beginning, even the forms are fluid, like clouds. Then as it keeps coming down, the forms become more and more rigid until finally in the physical world, you have fixed forms. Relatively fixed, not absolutely fixed, but relatively fixed. Okay? So this is what he is describing. Another way to describe these 3 terms, indeterminates and determinations and indeterminable, we are always starting from the indeterminable. Okay? But as it keeps manifesting itself, manifestation means making the form. And the form means you are limiting that which is unlimited. Okay? So, that again, we have said many times, but we repeat. If I am a potter, I have got a vast stock of clay, and the clay has got forms which are potentially there in the clay. Pots and pans and whatnot, whatever you want. But they have not yet been manifested. So if you want a manifestation of the pots and pans in the clay, the potter has to take a small portion and give it a form. So, small portion from the infinite or the huge amount of clay, you are taking a small amount and you are giving it a form. So, form necessarily means limitation. Limitation means again losing of its features. Okay? So, or rather, losing its indeterminations. It's the opposite, okay, and becomes more and more formed. So you can describe a stone, you can describe something which is very, very fixed in the physical world, but as you keep rising in consciousness, the forms become more and more subtle and more featureless until you rise to the extreme summit of the whole creation, and that's indeterminable, because you can't say anything about the divine which will limit him. If you say he is omnipotent and omniscient and omnipresent, only you are limiting him. He can be the opposite of omnipotent. He can be the opposite of omnipresent. He can be whatever he wants. Therefore, that's indeterminable. Okay? We can also think of the seed. The seed contains all the determinations of the tree. If you blow the seed up, you will not see any leaves and fruits and flowers in it. You will not see. But potentially they are all there in the seed. So the seed is, in a sense, the indeterminable. But give it the right conditions, put it in the ground, give it water and sunlight and all, it will start sprouting. And it will start making different tissues. First of all, it will come out, and then the bark will come, then the fruits, the leaves will come, then the branches will come out, then slowly the flowers will come and the fruits will come. So this is a slow, gradual process of, from the indeterminable, more and more determinations are coming out. You can also think of the human cell. Every living creature starts from a cell. One cell which is maybe fertilized. Then it divides itself into two, it divides it into four, and all. At some point or other, this one cell which seems to be indeterminate and indeterminable, okay, starts producing tissues, different types of tissues. It produces skin tissue, it produces muscle tissue, it produces bone tissue, it produces light sensitive tissue, it goes on producing more and more until finally you have the whole human being with maybe 32,000 features. Okay? So, this is what Sremda is going to describe in this chapter. It's about 25 pages, and this is the basic idea. Next time I'll remember and I'll bring a chart, and then we can discuss this question of the indeterminable becoming more and more determinate until finally you have determinates in the cosmos. Okay?
In this the word determine, no? So it's having this root as terminus.
Yes.
Which means end.
Determine, yeah.
So determine means when you can put a limit to something.
That's right. The word term, yeah, term, and the word term itself means feature, okay, it means feature. So, we start reading the quotations first. By the way, the Life Divine is the one book in Sremdo where there are quotations before, quotations from the Shastras, from the Upanishads, from the Gita, from the Vedas, from the Hindu Shastras, okay, mostly. So we read which are relevant to the subject. I am reading the quotations. The unseen, with whom there can be no pragmatic relations, unseizable, featureless, unthinkable, undesignable by name, whose substance is the certitude of the one self, in whom world existence is stilled, who is all peace and bliss. That is the self. That is what must be known. From the Mandukya Upanishad. The next one is from the Gita. One sees it as a mystery, or one speaks of it or hears of it as a mystery, but none knows it. The next one also is from the Gita. In fact, the last one also is from the Gita. When men seek after the immutable, the indeterminable, the unmanifest, the all-pervading, the unthinkable, the summit self, the immobile, the permanent, equal in mind to all, intent on the good of all beings, it is to me that they come. Gita. So in other words, what Gita is saying is, Sri Krishna is saying that when you go to the self, the Brahman consciousness, you actually come to me. The next is from the Katha Upanishad. High beyond the intelligence is the great self. Beyond the great self is the unmanifest. Beyond the unmanifest is a conscious being. There is nothing beyond the being. That is the extreme ultimate. That the supreme goal. The Katha Upanishad. Rare is the great of soul, to whom all is the divine being. From the Gita. So these are the quotations, and you can see all the first quotations are all how they are speaking of the immutable, the indeterminable. This is the you can experience this even in the first level of the spiritual planes of consciousness. The spiritual planes of consciousness are when your mind becomes silent, or even if the mind is not silent, your consciousness, your soul, the essential soul, escapes from the prison of body-mind life, mounts up and is free from the prison of body-mind life. Then at that time, you can be said to be in the Brahman consciousness or the self, the Atman. There are many words you can use for that. Brahman, Atman, this is all the usual the words used in the Upanishads. And the Buddhists use the word Nirvana, okay? Because the world reality is blown out. It is sort of Nirva is to blow out, like you blow out a candle. The reality of the physical world is blown out.
Extinguished.
This can be experienced even when you make your mind silent or go to the first level of the spiritual planes of consciousness. A consciousness force, everywhere inherent in existence, acting even when concealed, is the creator of the worlds, the occult secret of nature. But in our material world and in our own being, consciousness has a double aspect. There is a force of knowledge. There is a force of ignorance. In the infinite consciousness of a self-aware, infinite existence, knowledge must be everywhere implicit or operative in the very grain of its action. But we see here, at the beginning of things, apparent as the base or the nature of the creative world energy, and in conscience, a total nescience. This is the stock with which the all material universe commences. Consciousness and knowledge emerge at first in obscure, infinitesimal movements, at points, in little quanta, which associate themselves together. There is a tardy and difficult evolution, a slowly increasing organization and ameliorated mechanism of the workings of consciousness. More and more gains are written on the blank slate of the nescience. But still, these have the appearance of gathered acquisitions and constructions of a seeking ignorance, which tries to know, to understand, to discover, to change slowly and strugglingly into knowledge. As life here establishes and maintains its operations with difficulty on a foundation and in an environment of general death, first in infinitesimal points of life, in quanta of life form and life energy, in increasing aggregates that create more and more complex organisms, an intricate life machinery, consciousness also establishes and maintains a growing but precarious light in the darkness of an original nescience and a universal ignorance. Quite a para. So we'll have to go into a little bit of details for what he's saying. Basically what he's saying is that you are starting from an inconscience, and the inconscience has got the full consciousness and force, and Satchidananda is involved in the inconscience. And because it is the divine consciousness force, it is slowly emerging. Very with great difficulty, because the opposite is the principle of the divine. It is everything in the inconscient is the opposite of the divine. The superconscient and the inconscient are opposites in many ways, but they are also very similar in many ways. The similarities are superconscious is infinite, the inconscience is infinite. The superconscient is formless, the inconscient also is formless to begin with. The superconscient is the seed from which everything is there in the seed and it comes out. That's an involution. Same with the inconscience also. It's a seed form from which everything comes out. The only difference is the superconscient is a seed of light and the inconscient is a seed of darkness. So, from the superconscience, you have what you can call the involution. The movement is the same. It goes on bringing out whatever is latent in it. And from the inconscience, what comes out is also all that is involved in it, but you call it the evolution. One is starting from light, one is starting from darkness. Okay? So, they are mirror images of each other. You can say that they are mirror images of each other. When you look in a mirror, left becomes right and right becomes left. So, this is exactly what's happening. That is there. The light becomes the dark.
The yin and yang symbol is the same, no?
Pardon?
The yin and yang symbol, no? That yin and yang, no? That symbol is the same, no?
Yeah.
Dark and white, no?
Yeah.
Each has
I think yin yang has something to do with, I think, Purusha Prakriti.
Is it? Oh.
But again the same, because this is Prakriti and that is Purusha. Purusha is consciousness and Prakriti is force. So in a sense that also applies. Okay? So we start reading Now the last quotation from the Gita is a very interesting one, because rare is the great of soul to whom all is the divine being. Okay? Sarvam khalu idam brahman, isn't that the thing? Vasudeva sarvamiti sa mahatma sudurlabha. Okay?
That is in Sanskrit, right?
Yeah.
That is
Vasudeva sarvamiti sa mahatma sudurlabha. Now, by definition of the Gita itself, Sri Aurobindo is this Mahatma. So it is very, very interesting that the Gita itself is saying. Because
after 1956, this verse should be taken with a little more flexibility.
Yes.
Hasn't the possibilities of spiritual evolution increased? So we should not probably say Sudurlabha. I don't know.
Okay, Sudurlabha. Yeah, okay. Samahatma Sudurlabha. Yeah, you're right. So, in other words, the Superman is bound to come one day. He is going to bound. Because after 1956, the conditions in the physical world have changed. Sri Aurobindo describes that also. In fact, what he says is this. He says that potentiality is one thing, but I've forgotten the exact words. It's very interesting. We'll come to that. We'll discuss that. Okay. So, the seed has the potentiality of the tree, but the right conditions must be given to it. If the right conditions are not given, the seed can never become the tree.
It can dry. It can die, no? The seed. If you don't pour
Take a
water...
seed, and put it on the table.
Yeah.
It will never become a...
Exactly. You have to give a right soil.
Yeah, you have to give. So now that is what Sri Aurobindo has done. Okay? He has made that possible. He has put the seed of that into and given the right conditions. Now it is flowering. If he had not done that, the possibility would be infinitely remote. But that's exactly what he has done. Okay, we read the paragraph. A consciousness force, Chit Shakti, corresponding to the Satchidananda, everywhere inherent in existence. So existence, Sat, okay, substance. It is there everywhere. Only at the higher level, it is more open, and as it keeps coming down in the lower levels, it becomes more and more hidden. Okay? Everywhere inherent in existence. Acting even when concealed, even when you don't see it, the Satchidananda is active, is the creator of the worlds, an occult secret of nature. Occult, hidden secret of nature. Nature also is going on creating, and the superconscious also is going on creating. But in our material world and in our own being, now this is also typically Sri Aurobindo, he is constantly speaking at two levels, the individual level and the cosmic level. In our Indian yoga, mostly the attention was on the individual getting liberation. But Sri Aurobindo is very, very concerned with the evolution in the physical world also. One individual getting liberation and disappearing into the infinite is okay for that individual, but what about the world? So Sri Aurobindo is very concerned with the collectivity also. So here that's what he's saying. But in our material world, which is the collectivity, and in our own being, consciousness has a double aspect. Okay? And what is the double aspect? There is a force of knowledge. There is a force of ignorance. There is light and there is darkness. Both are there at every level. At the highest level, only knowledge seems to be there, but darkness is potentiality there. At the lower level, darkness is there, but the potentiality of light is there.
Can you say that even in undeveloped being, these two forces are operating? Can you say that even in undeveloped being, the knowledge of force, the force of knowledge and ignorance are operating?
Of course.
But if he lives in total
if
ignorance...
If it is not operating, how can there be evolution?
Okay. In that sense.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like a possibilities, right?
Yes.
Not active.
No.
Okay.
But it becomes... No, it is active, but it's a very slow process.
Okay.
Evolution is very slow. Why go to an individual who is not developed? Go to matter. Matter is the most...
But he's saying in our own conscious being, you
Yes.
already meant human beings here, right?
Both. Yeah, there is light and there is darkness, both, exactly. There is a force of knowledge and there is a force of ignorance. The force of knowledge, you can say in a sense, is your psychic being, or the divine presence in the individual. But there is also the force of ignorance. Your body-mind life is ignorant. Okay. In the infinite consciousness at the highest level of a self-aware infinite existence, knowledge must be everywhere implicit or operative in the very grain of its action. So, let's see what he's saying. He's saying, in the infinite consciousness, so he is obviously talking of the higher level,
Yes.
in the superconscious, of a self, in the infinite consciousness of a self-aware infinite existence. Self-aware infinite existence. Infinite existence is substance, subtle substance. But that subtle substance is not substance. It is conscious of itself. It is like matter which is conscious of itself. But it is subtle. When that subtlety loses its subtlety and becomes gross matter, consciousness seems to be gone. But it is there. It is hidden. Okay? Knowledge must be everywhere implicit or operative in the very grain of its action. So either it is implicit or he is saying it is also operative in the very grain of its action. It can remain implicit, but it can also become active. And because it becomes active, it produces life first. But matter continues to remain matter. So therefore...
The previous sentence, where he speaks of the force of knowledge and the force of ignorance.
Yes.
So, as I understand, the light divine is kind of based on the Isha Upanishad.
Yes.
And in the Isha Upanishad, the words for knowledge and ignorance are Vidya and Avidya.
Yes.
And he says Vidya means the consciousness of unity,
Yes.
whereas Avidya means basically the consciousness of multiplicity.
Yes.
So, can we take that meaning for that sentence also?
Absolutely, I think so. When you are in the ignorance, you are seeing the many. We can define ignorance in that way. We can say that so long as you see the many without the unity, you are in ignorance.
So basically when we say that every being has a double aspect of knowledge as well as ignorance, can we also say that it means that I have the sense of being the one and yet I have the sense of being a multiple individual?
Depending at which level you are. If you are at the lowest, the first level of the physical world, okay, matter, life, mind, if you are there, the ignorance is much more. You are saying that I am conscious, that I have something in me. You are not conscious. In the spiritual planes of consciousness, second level, you are conscious. Okay, so there is the force of in the infinite consciousness of a self-aware infinite existence. Knowledge must be there everywhere, implicit or operative in the very grain of its action. Both the things are there.
Mm-hmm.
But we see here at the beginning of things, that means matter, okay, apparent as the base or the nature of the creative world energy, okay, and in conscience, a total nescience. At the beginning, we see a total nescience. This is the stock with which the material universe commences. Consciousness and knowledge emerge at first in obscure, infinitesimal movements, at points in little quanta, which associate themselves together. So he's talking of unicellular creatures.
Yeah.
So unicellular creatures come first in the form of life. Then they associate themselves, make molecules, and then living tissue comes into being. So that's what he's saying, associate themselves. This is the stock from which the material universe commences. Consciousness and knowledge emerge at first in obscure, infinitesimal movements. At points in little quanta which associate themselves together. So the unicellular cells come together, associate themselves and create molecules. And molecules create living tissue. Okay. There is a tardy and difficult evolution. Tardy, very slow, and it's also difficult. Not only slow but difficult. A slowly increasing organization and ameliorated mechanism of the workings of consciousness. So,
What is this?
what does he mean by ameliorated mechanism?
Yeah.
So, take first the unicellular unit, okay? One cell. Does it respond? Is there a sensitivity in it? And does it respond to the environment? Maybe only by touch. Okay? But it associates and makes itself into molecules, and molecules give living tissue. This living tissue starts slowly making plants and animals. But even in the animals, there is a gradation of the consciousness. First you have creatures with one sense only. So, but that becomes ameliorated, it improves and becomes 2 senses. Then it becomes 3 senses. Then it becomes 4 senses, and finally you have 5 senses. So what he means is, ameliorated mechanism of the workings of consciousness. The workings of consciousness are the senses.
Mm-hmm.
And some creatures have only 1 sense, some creatures have 2 senses, 3 senses, 4 senses. We know, for instance, that the snakes can't hear. They don't have ears. And we also know that deep down in the darkest portion of the sea, the fish don't have eyes because they don't need eyes. There's only total darkness. So, I think the worm has got only tactile sense. No ears, no eyes, nothing. Just tactile sense. So this is what he means by ameliorated mechanism of the workings of consciousness. You can replace workings of consciousness by the senses. Okay? So,
do you know, there is a very fascinating studies about this, how the cell been created, first cell. So there was a first organism called mitochondria. So that mitochondria was living, it's like a virus type or something. Then there was a kind of a plasma type. So when they joined together million years ago, so that cell been created, which is prototype of our cells, which is inside is mitochondria, which is in a collaboration with the cell, but it's a different organism inside. Every cell is like this. There is inside mitochondria.
That is a subject, deep
which
subject.
They joined together.
Yeah.
Amazing. They made a contract.
That's a biology.
Yes,
but
it's
here
very fascinating.
In a very...
how you said this, how they joined together as a group, different cells, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Inside of the cell.
He's talking even about the inside of the cell. Mitochondria, she said.
Yeah, mitochondria. Yeah, I know. I heard that. Yeah.
Before they were existing separate.
So, slowly increasing organization and ameliorated mechanism of the workings of consciousness. More and more gains are written on the blank slate of the nations. The blank slate of the nations, that doesn't seem to be consciousness at all. But from there, slowly, more and more consciousness is being registered. 1 sense, 2 senses, 3 senses, 4 senses, etc. But still, these have the appearance of a gathered acquisitions and constructions of a seeking ignorance. Although you have 1 sense and 2 senses, but there are 3 senses better, 4 senses better. Even when you have 5 senses, you are seeking knowledge. Science is doing that. Man is also doing that. He is seeking knowledge. You can't say that he has all the knowledge. So, there is ignorance still. Okay? So, it's a seeking ignorance. The ignorance is beginning to seek. Right in the beginning, the ignorance is not even seeking. In matter, there is no seeking. But the moment the senses come up and the consciousness starts expressing itself, there is a seeking. Okay? So, a seeking ignorance is a very interesting description for science. Science is seeking ignorance. Okay? Even yoga in a way is seeking ignorance, which tries to know, to understand, to discover, to change slowly and strugglingly into knowledge. Okay? As life here establishes and maintains its operations with difficulty on a foundation and in an environment of general death, first in infinitesimal points of life, in quanta, he is repeating, in quanta of life form and life energy. Now, life form and life energy. What does he mean? Life form, matter.
Quanta,
Life energy, vitality.
Quanta is a very small portion, right? Quanta.
Yeah, quanta is very small portion.
Minimum possible, right?
Yeah.
Minimum possible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Quantum is a amount.
Amount.
Yeah. Quantum.
This is basically used to differentiate between what you call particle and wave. Basically for that.
Yeah.
When you can divide something and quantify it, the word quantity,
That's
similar word.
When you can determine,
That's right.
determine, right?
Yes.
It becomes quanta.
Yes.
From something which is undetermined, right?
Yes.
So
That's
that he used this. no?
Yes.
It comes from physics, no? This quanta.
Yes. The quantum theory started.
Yeah, yeah.
Why is light a series of particles or is it a wave?
They say it
That
is
was-
both.
Yeah.
That is the closest that physics has come to this concept of form and formless.
Yes. That's
What
right.
they are calling wave is basically the nirakara, and what they are called particle is basically the sakara.
Yeah. It's a very interesting description how both are really the same thing. Okay, we'll discuss that one day, not today. Okay, so so he says life form and life energy. So what does he mean by this? Life form is the material form, the body, and life energy is the energy that is in the body, the vitality. So matter and life, body and vital. That's what he means. In increasing, note that we very often don't make this differentiation. We have a body, but the body cannot be animated without the vitality in it. Just like a car will not be able to move without a motor, and the motor is giving it the energy to move. So the two are different. You have a life, you have a form, and you have energy. And when they come together, you have a living substance. In increasing aggregates that create more and more complex organisms. The more and more complex organisms, you can relate it to ameliorated mechanism.
No.
Okay? And intricate life machinery, consciousness also establishes and maintains a growing but precarious light in the darkness of an original nations and a universal ignorance. But note the word
Precarious.
intricate life machinery.
Intricate.
If you think of the human body, it's really absolutely a marvelous way the machine works.
It's a really
Yeah.
wonder.
Just consider two things. You have a heart that is pumping non-stop for 70, 80, 90 years.
At everything.
Which motor will last for 90 years? No motor will last for 90 years. Okay. Think of the kidney. How it is being able to purify the blood by osmosis. Okay. So these are all fantastic things that happen. The more you think of all these things, the more you realize that it's absolutely an unbelievable machine.
Unbelievable. Take immune system, how intelligent it is. Take our brain, how much it is thinking all the
Yes.
time, analyzing. We don't even know what is
Exactly.
happening.
Moreover, the knowledge gained is a phenomena, not of the reality of things or of the foundations of existence. Wherever our consciousness meets what seems to be a foundation, that foundation wears the appearance of a blank, when it is not a void, an original state which is featureless and a multitude of consequences which are not inherent in the origin and which nothing in it seems to justify or visibly to necessitate. There is a mass of superstructure which has no clear native relation to the fundamental existence. The first aspect of cosmic existence is an infinite, which is to our perception an indeterminate, if not indeterminable. In this infinite, the universe itself, whether in its aspect of energy or its aspect of structure, appears as an indeterminate determination, a boundless finite, paradoxical but necessary expressions which would seem to indicate that we are face to face with a supra-rational mystery at the base of things. In that universe arise, now this is Srinivas's way of saying, from where? Okay? Arise a vast number and variety of general and particular determinates which do not appear to be warranted by anything perceptible in the nature of the infinite, but seem to be imposed, or it may be self-imposed upon it. We give to the energy which produces them the name of nature, but the word conveys no meaning unless it is that the nature of things is what it is by virtue of a force which arranges them according to an inherent truth in them. But the nature of that truth itself, the reason why these determinates are what they are, is nowhere visible. It has been possible indeed for human science to detect the process or many processes of material things. But this knowledge does not throw any light on the major question. We do not know even the rationale of the original cosmic processes, for the results do not present themselves as their necessary, but only their pragmatic and actual consequence. In the end, we do not know how these determinates came into or out of the original indeterminate or indeterminable on which they stand forth as on a blank and flat background in the riddle of their ordered occurrence. We'll see. At the origin of things, we are faced with an infinite containing a mass of unexplained finites, an indivisible full of endless divisions, an immutable teeming with mutations and differentiae. A cosmic paradox is the beginning of all things, a paradox without any key to its significance.
But God is a paradox.
Yeah. So, this is what he's saying, that out of nothing seems to come out so many things. So, how is that possible? Okay. So, we can take matter. There doesn't seem to be any life in it, and it's absolutely dead, and it's the same everywhere. Out of that is coming what? Plants. And there is no sign of life at all in matter, and yet life is coming out. From where is it coming out? Okay. Then And this life, is it of one type? No. It's of infinite types. Plants, only one type of plant? No. 100,000 million types, and they're going on. New species also are going on, being born endlessly. So, I think this para we'll take up next time.
I like how Sri Aurobindo is writing here. Boundless finite,
Yes,
and then indeterminable determination.
that's right.
It's so beautiful, no?
And the boundless finite is putting in double quotes because it's a very used in science also, na?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, the boundless finite.
And then from where the question mark in the middle of the sentence? Is Sri
Yeah.
Aurobindo style? You said it's Sri Aurobindo is putting it like this.
Because the matter is producing, matter itself seems to be absolutely zero. But from there it's coming out. So from where is it coming out?
So in the middle of the sentence, he put this question.
Yeah.
No?
But normally he has not put here
Yeah.
a comma dash, but normally he puts a comma dash and ends with a comma dash.
Yeah, that's
Normally
what.
what we would do is put a comma or a parenthesis. But this is his style.
His style, that's what you said, his style. No?
Yeah, this is his style of writing.
This boundless finite, probably what would have happened was that when he was writing the Arya, which is when this would have been written for the first time, at that time in some prominent, field of knowledge, science or something, this phrase would have been used.
Yes.
So he's basically acknowledging that current phase. He does that in other books also.
I think so. Because even the universe, okay, it is finite, looks to be finite, but you don't know where it is ending. But the moment you think of an ending, your mind becomes boggled because what is there beyond that ending? So, boundless finite.
Ranganath, this last line of this para say, a cosmic paradox is the beginning of all things,
Yes.
a paradox without any key to its significance. But in Savitri, he replied, no, he said, life is a paradox.
No, he's
for the
saying that
God for a key. What is it exactly?
Of course, no, he will explain.
Yeah.
He will explain what that key is.
Yeah, it is just intermediary, right?
Yeah.
He's saying.
But here he is saying,
He's just building up the argument.
yeah, that's right. It's an argument. He's saying that we don't seem to see anything. Of course, he will explain to you why it is coming out. It's coming out because the Satchidananda is involved here. It seems to be a zero, but it's not a zero. There's a big difference between, that discussion will come in the next chapter, Brahman, Maya, Purusha. That next chapter is a huge chapter, Brahman, Purusha, Ishvara, Maya, Prakriti, Shakti. 40 pages.